A very good evening to all my dear students, viewers and listeners once again. If you are tuning in for the first time today, I'm introducing myself again. I'm Miss Vivekunyovile from Mount Sinai High Secondary School. And I'll be taking up the English for class 10 through this whole period. And so I want all of you to stay focused. I know this is the third period of your class and some of you might be feeling a little bored, but here I want to ask a question. I want all of us to ask a question to ourselves again. In our normal daily classes, we usually have 7 to 8 periods in a day. So we should not be and we cannot be bored with the 3 periods. And if you're already bored sitting for the first 2 periods, I'm telling you that this class is going to be really interesting. If you do not believe that, sit, focus and watch what I'm going to teach today. The previous 2 classes I've had with you, I'm sure you have learned a lot there. We have done one grammar section, we have done a prose, and today also I'm coming to you with a prose, keeping in mind that this is the 3rd period again, because we are all interested with stories, and when we are already bored, we want to refresh ourselves with something that is interesting, and I bet you will enjoy it. And so the story that I've picked up today is Mehuvier and Morsa, the first chapter of our textbook, that is in page number 15. If you want to refer, it's at page number 15, Mehuvier and Morsa. Before getting into that, let me just explain the type of stories that we have. There are different types of stories, the kind of stories differ from one to the other. We can name them as the legendary stories. Those are semi-true stories, and we usually see pictures, or we usually see characters who are of heroic character. They might be very heroic, or we can see some fantastic places in the legendary stories. And the next one that we have can be the mythical stories, which are based on tradition. It has a very deep symbolic here that we can learn. They usually deals with the universal arrivals, or it might be true or may not be true, but they have a deep symbolic meaning there. And folk tales can be classified into so many things, but before that, folk tales are usually the verbal stories that have been passed on from our forefathers. It might be true, some can be semi-true also here. And one thing particular about the folktales are they have a lot of versions, varieties of versions. That means the story can differ from village to village, but it has a similar ending there. Or it can also be from state to state or from country to country, but they keep on passing those folktales. And here, Mehuvier and Morsa can be classified as a folktale because it is passed on. Those are popular stories that are being passed on from our previous generations, from our forefathers, from our grandfathers, and to us, and we will also keep on passing. Those are called as the folk tales. And here, before starting into the story, I just want to make an example of a mythical story. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Greek mythology called Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was a very famous poet, a writer, and also a prophet. He had a very beautiful wife named Eurydice, and then he loved her so much, but suddenly, one day, a snake bit her, and then she died. So Orpheus kept on composing a lot of emotional songs. He kept singing in the woods alone. And then the gods were touched by his songs, and then they told him to go down to Hades, the king of death, the king of the world of death, and speak to him. So after hearing all his emotional songs, the others got touched by his song. And so he went down, he went to meet the king of death, of the world of death, and finally, when he went to meet the king was also inspired and was touched by his song, so he decided to send the wife back with him. And so, but there was a condition for him to take back the wife. And so they told him that he had to go on without turning back unless he reached the surface of the earth. But he could not hold any longer, and his impatience made him to turn, and there the wife vanished. And so that was the story. That was a mythical story. This is not going to be the focus of our class today, but I just want you to know the difference between a folktale and a mythical story. That's why I gave that example. Coming into the story, I'm I'm very, very sure that you'll enjoy it because we are going to discuss about a beautiful young lady and also a handsome young man. Here, the title of the story itself suggests Mehuvia and Morsa. That means Mehuvia was the lady and Morsa was the man that we are going to read about. It's originally an Angami folktale. We all know that Nagas consist of various tribes. We all know the names of the tribes, and Angamis are the tribes that reside in the district of Kohima. And so this is a folktale from the district of Kohima. Mehuvia was a very, very beautiful young lady. She was considered to be the most winsome maiden of her village. Maidens are young ladies who have already grown up. And so Mehuvia was considered to be the most winsome, the most beautiful lady in her village. She had a very pleasing personality. Sometimes we see some people, some ladies who are very beautiful, but they don't seem to have an attractive personality. Sometimes if we keep looking at them for some moment, maybe we feel like the beauty vanishes. But here, Mehuvia was not a lady like that. She had a very pleasing personality and a virtuous character. See, I repeat, character. Your beauty alone will not make you look beautiful for long. It may be for a moment, you may look pretty, but that is not going to last long. Mehuvia had a very pleasing personality. Adding more to that, she had a very virtuous character. Very virtuous. She had a very good moral character, and that is why many young men in her village admired her and wanted to marry her. See, sometimes we think that outer appearance is the only thing that is important, but I want to remind everyone here again, and especially the ladies and the girls that are watching right now, your character is going to be important. So that's why the setting of the story, I'm just going to make it very clear that your character is what will make you known to others. She had a very pleasing personality, a good character, and that's why many young men admired her and wanted to marry her. You might have seen a lot of girls that are popular in your school. We all have the tendency to be the popular one among the group. And so, but to be the popular one, you need to have some qualities, then only you become the popular one. People come to you. And if you don't use your popularity in the right spirit, in the right way, sometimes it can be a destructive thing for yourselves again. So we have to be careful with this. Many young men admired her, wanted to marry her. Maybe they have come with proposals to her. She had been refusing. But when I say proposals, don't think of the modern day proposals that you do at school. We know, as teachers, proposal become a very common thing for a lot of students. But when I say proposals here, it refers to the formal proposal. They don't just go hang out and then they talk to each other. It's not that kind of proposal, but here the proposal are usually brought by the aunties and uncles of that particular man who wanted to marry the girl. And it keeps on, it is a very formal way of proposing. You might not even know the person that you are going to marry in the modern day. If that is something that is going to happen to you, I'm sure you don't like it. Imagine getting married to a person whom you don't know, whom you have not even seen. And that is the reason why when I say proposal, you might only be considering it in the present context. But that is going to be different here. So Mehuvia was a very popular lady in the village. There are so many young men who wanted to marry her. But she also heard a rumor. Okay, I repeat, rumor. It might not be true. It might not be true, but she heard a rumor that Morsa, the famous warrior of Kidima. Kidima is a village. And so Morsa was a man from the village of Kidima who might come for asking for her hand in marriage. She heard about that, and her friends were suspecting that Mehuvia had been rejecting all the proposals because she had heard of the famous warrior Morsa who could possibly become her suitor. It's not very sure, but her friends were suspecting this. Suspicion is something very common to all of us. We suspect people. Sometimes when we see someone talking or hanging around together, we suspect them to be having an affair. All those things are very normal. And so even in their time, during those days, her friends might be suspecting her because Morsa was I'll explain how or what kind of person Morsa was. He was a very, very famous warrior. And when I say warrior, in the olden days, when we had the head hunting culture, warriors are respected so much. In the present day, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we look up to a person who is well educated, who is well known. Example, we look at the celebrities and the stars with a lot of hopes and with a lot of admiration. And you can compare these two characters, the modern day stars, superstars or singers or the celebrities, to the warriors in the olden days. Because that was a thing of glory. If a person is able to hunt the heads of enemy warriors, they are considered to be very respectable. But when I say this, I am not encouraging anyone to go back to their old practices of head hunting, because that would be vulgar, that is a punishable thing. And we should not even think of that. Sometimes we see people being cruel to others, that is also a punishable crime. But in the olden days, things were different. There will be disputes for land boundaries between villages, between clans, and that is why head hunting was considered to be a normal practice. But they just don't go and hunt any person that they want. There are some villages that does not have a good friendship tie, and they have some issues for boundaries maybe, or for any other possible reasons, and that is the reason why they have disputes, and these are not considered to be a thing of crime, because they believe that they are doing this to protect their own rights. And so Morsa was a very famous warrior of Kidima. He was tall and strong. I repeat, tall and strong. See, we all want to be tall, especially the boys. I'm sure you want to be a tall boy. For the girls, we don't mind much. I know that. If you don't mind looking cute and pretty, but for the boys, they all want to be tall and strong. From a young age, every boy wants to be strong. Not for any other purposes of fighting or things like that, but we all want to look strong, and Morsa was a person like that. So, having all the good qualities that a lady would admire, he was also famous. Not only because he was a good headhunter, he was a warrior. And in the absence of all the medias and things, he became so popular in the neighboring villages. In the present day, in a flip of a second, we can just tune into whatever the world is doing, and we can experience. Now, at the comfort of your home, you're sitting watching, and this is also something very normal. But in the olden days, during the time of Mehuvia and Morsa, things were not as easy as this. But he was able to make his name become popular as a warrior. There were very few, only very few, maybe the most ignorant ones or the little ones maybe. There were only very few in the neighboring villages who had not heard of him. That means everybody talks about the warrior Morsa. He was really, really a very famous warrior. And being this, Mehuvia had been hearing the rumors. We do not really know whether this is true because her friends were just suspecting. But one day, Morsa's uncles advised him to get married. Maybe he was at the right age of getting married. And so, when his uncles and aunties suggested the virtuous Mehuvia to become his wife, he also agreed to it. That means, sometimes we keep waiting for a capable one. You would not just get into an affair or a relationship with anyone you know or you meet. It's because you look for the qualities, the capability, whether that person will suit you or not. There are so many criteria that in choosing someone, or even to befriend somebody, for that matter, at school. You go to a new school, you just don't randomly pick up any friend. Maybe you observe a little bit whether that person's character is what you want. And this is how we also form our friendship, our friend circle. And here, Mehuvia might also be looking for a person like that because she was very virtuous. When there was no formal education system like the modern day, she was considered to be a very respectable lady, having a good character, very beautiful. And Morsa, on the other hand, was a very well-known person. And they will be compatible. Compatible means they will be equally good in their own ways. And this might be something that her friends were suspecting on Mehuvia. And the rumors were confirmed when Morsa's uncle came for the marriage proposal for Mehuvia's hand in marriage. She readily accepted, or let me say, they readily accepted, because it will not be her sole decision. She will not only be the one deciding whether to get married or not, because parents play a very strong force on the marriages. You cannot just pick any random guy and get married to it. You have to take the consent of your parents, or even if you like that person, if your parents don't agree to that, you cannot just get married to that person. They lived in a very disciplined lifestyle. And these are the things that had been going on when Morsa's relatives came. They were readily accepted without any reluctance. Maybe they did not say, we will discuss about it and inform you later, or we will have to talk about this some other time. Those are the things that usually happen during marriage proposals. But for this case, it was a different case. They were readily. That means as soon as they came for the marriage proposal, their proposal was accepted. And so, maybe the curious friends might be discussing about among themselves again that the rumor was true. When she readily accepted, there were so many young men, maybe handsome young men, came for proposal. But she did not accept all those things. Finally, she readily accepted this proposal of Morsa. When these things happened, Mehuvia was also expectantly happy. Expectantly happy means she was really happy, and people were also expecting her to be happy. And who will not? A very famous warrior like Morsa coming for proposal. And she would, as she had readily accepted, she also wanted to feast her female friends. She might be having a very good circle of friends. So before the wedding day, she wanted to feast her female friends, and she arranged a feast. All her friends came for the party, and they might have enjoyed a lot, having the best time of their life. And after all these things happened, Mehuvia had also been dreaming. See, dreams play a very important thing for our lives, especially for our culture. In our culture, people believe that if you see a dream, it has a meaning with it. Even in this modern day, the present day, there are so many people who believe in their dreams. Who knows, you might be one of them. Though you are living in the modern day, but you might still be believing, and I see nothing wrong in that. Sometimes we tend to believe our dreams, especially when we keep dreaming of a particular thing repeatedly. So the situation was like this. Mehuvia, just days before her wedding, she dreamt a very, very strange dream. And the dream was that she was at Morsa's place. And she does not know Morsa, even though she had already accepted his marriage proposal. But she dreamt that she was at Morsa's place with a heaped plate of rice and meat set before her. Heaped, that means full, not just flat, okay? She saw that she was at Morsa's house with a heaped plate of rice and meat set before her. She could not understand what the meaning of this dream is all about. And she got more curious, just because she had been dreaming this dream repeatedly. Not just once or twice. She began to dream this dream a lot of times, and she was so confused. Maybe she was trying to get the meaning from people, trying to ask people here and there. These are the things that she had been doing. But she could not comprehend. Some people might be saying that it's just a good sign because there is food. There might be some people who tells her that it might bear a bad consequence. Things might be going on like this. Even today, we do that. We keep dreaming of a particular thing. We want to know what that means. And then we also tend to believe again that there is a particular meaning for that dream. These are the things that goes on in our mind. And Mehuvia must be in a very confused state, getting married to a person not from the same village. In the modern day, we don't mind about villages, we don't mind about tribes, or we don't mind about going abroad, getting married to a person from another state. But in those days, getting married to a person who is from another village whom you don't know, she will also be apprehensive, fearing things of how it would turn out to be. And in the midst of all this, she had been dreaming a very strange dream again, that also repeatedly. If you put yourself in the position, in place of Mehuvia, I'm sure you and I will also feel the same thing. Dreaming of the same dream, maybe for weeks. This is going to affect us mentally. These are the things that she had been experiencing. And Morsa, on the other hand, since they are from different villages, he also wanted to prove himself to be a worthy suitor, a person who is compatible with Mehuvye, because he had heard a lot. He might have heard a lot about Mehuvye, her characters, her outlook, her outward appearance, everything. And so he also wanted to make himself suitable for Mehuvye, to prove that he is really worthy of all this. And then he decided to go out and hunt an enemy warrior. And so he planned out all this. This is all because he wanted glory for himself. Sometimes in the hunt of glory, we might even tend to make wrong decisions. We all wanted to, if I ask you right now, to all the students, whether you wanted to become a very popular fellow or not, whether you say or you respond yes or not, I'm sure within your heart, within you all want to be that popular face in the whole world. When you keep looking at the celebrities, you envy them. You may not say it openly. You may just say, I want to live a very normal life like this. But on the other side, you will also want to become popular like them. Maybe the luxurious life that they are leading. We all want to keep copying their lifestyles. These are the things that are very normal for each and every one of us. And so, after you attain something, we all have heard that human wants are unlimited. That's a normal talk for us. And so likewise, although he had become very popular, already popular, he does not have to prove himself again. But he really wanted to prove to his bride-to-be. Mehuvye is not the bride yet. She is going to be the bride of Morsa. So he wanted to prove to Mehuvye that he was really capable, compatible with her good qualities. And that is the reason why he decided to go out on a quest to hunt an enemy warrior. So one day, he decided to move out. And while he was moving out, he could not find any enemy warriors. He was walking for a long distance. Imagine on a day, you keep walking, you don't find anything. I'm sure you would be disappointed. He might also have reached that point of disappointment. He had been walking and walking and walking continuously for the whole day. He could not find anyone to hunt. And finally, maybe unknowingly, his steps led him to a village. He went to a village. His intention may not be to enter a particular village, but he was just looking for someone to hunt and then to behead, take the head home as a trophy and prove that he was really worthy for it. But in this process, as he could not find anyone, he entered a village which was quite deserted. Deserted means almost all the village was empty. He could not see anyone moving around. And one thing I want to let us all remember here again is in the olden days, if it is a working day, you would hardly see anybody staying back in the village idly. Unless you are sick or you have some very, very serious reason to stay at home. And so the whole village was quite deserted. He could not see anyone. And one reason why they go to field together is also for protection and security. It's not mentioned here in the book. Don't try to find those words, okay? But when they were, if you are to go to a particular field, you would like to go in a group. Because in the midst of your work, while you are still working, some enemy warriors come to attack you. You alone would be very helpless. And that is one thing why they go to field together. They will keep some warriors to guard the field where you are working. And that is the reason why they all go to field together. And if you are to stay back at the village idly, people would look at you from a negative viewpoint. They would either consider you idle, lazy, or whatever they want to call. Because they don't have the normal education, formal education system like the present day. They don't have offices to attend. The only work, whether rich or poor, you have to cultivate. Your status will be defined by how many barns of grains you have, the livestock that you have, the heads that you have hunted. Those are the glories of the olden days. And cultivation is considered to be very, very important. We also have seen slogans like no Naga culture without agriculture. So we know that every festival also surrounds the agriculture system. We have the festivals of harvest, we have the transplanting festival, all these things are related, are surrounding agriculture. These are the things that you see. So he also found that the whole inhabitants of the village had gone to field for their work, and that is the reason why he could not find anybody. So maybe he decided to take a walk around the village. He went around looking for people, but he could not find anyone. Finally, he spotted a lady who was at her porch. Porch, P-O-R-C-H. Porch here means it will be the modern corridors. But in a typical Naga house, when you go to a house, even today, in some villages, you will see some typical Naga houses. So when you go in, you will first see the porch, the empty space that is not fully covered. We call that as the porch. The next we enter, we see the granaries, and the next we see the kitchen, and the last room that you will find is the bedroom. That is something very contrary to our modern day rooms. But that is how the setting of a Naga house usually appears. And so he saw a lady waving at her porch. At the porch, obviously, because there will be more light, the walls will just be half covered. It will not be fully covered. So with light, you will be able to wave. The lady was with a loom. That means the cloth that she was waving. She was waving a loom. Mirza saw her. Since he had no other option, he went up to her in complete silence. The lady did not even realize that someone was coming behind him. And then he went up to her in complete silence. He slid off the loom. That means he cut off the loom that the lady was waving. He slid the loom off her, and then he quickly killed the lady with the spear. He drove his spear right into her heart. And so the lady became helpless. And finally, what a warrior usually does is, they don't just leave the dead body like that, they had to behead it. That means cut off the head and take it home. So he, after driving the spear into the lady's heart, he also beheaded the lady's head and proudly bore it home. He was proudly carrying the head of the lady home, considering it to be a trophy. See, even for us today, if you get good marks in a particular subject, I'm sure you go home very proudly, waiting. You cannot even wait to reach home because you had to show your papers to your parents for them to get signed. These are some things that we do. And the setting is a little different for us because they lived in a completely different era and we are in a different era again. So the things that you are proud of may not be a thing of importance to them in those days. And likewise, the same thing with us. But for him to kill a person and behead that person is a thing of joy and pride. He considered to be a trophy. So he proudly carried that head home. And he was expecting his bride, Mehuvia, to come home and then see the glories that he had attained. He had already earned a lot of glory for himself. But as I've said earlier, human wants are unlimited. We want to have more and more. If you pass your graduation, you want to go for higher studies, and the want and the desire continues on. So these are the things that is going on even in the mind of Mirza. Though he was already popular, he continued to hunt for glory. And then in a situation where he became optionless, because he did not find any enemy warrior, he also went to the extent of killing a lady, not knowing who she really is. These are the things that he had done. So he was at home very proudly because he had already killed a person and taking the head home. So when Mehuvia comes to his home as a bride, getting married to him, so in olden days, it has been told that ladies will be accompanied by her friends and will be dropped to the groom's place, unlike the modern day where the groom goes and take her. It's not like that. So he was expecting Mehuvia to step into his house and see the glory that the groom has attained, so that she can be proud of her husband. These are the things that goes on in the olden tradition. And when he did this, Mehuvia, On the other side, Mehuve's parents came home from their work, and then they found that their virtuous Mehuve, who was to be married to the warrior Morsa, had been killed by somebody, but they do not know. So they had to pass on the message through messengers. There will be some people to carry the messages to the other village. And so that is the reason why when they sent messengers to Morsa's village, they were grief-stricken. Even Mehuve's parents and relatives were grief-stricken at the news that she had been killed by a warrior when there was just a few days left for the wedding. But they cannot help, so they had to send messages. And after receiving the messages, Morsa's relatives were also grief-stricken. They could not believe what had been done. And so, after collecting all the bits of information, the pieces of information gathered together, Morsa became suspicious of this. Because the news sounded suspiciously familiar to him. Because he had also killed a lady waving at her porch. They might also have sent the details that she was killed by someone while she was waving. And so after gathering the bits of information, they realized that Morsa had unknowingly killed his beloved, the bride-to-be, in his search for glory. And like I said, they do not know each other. They just heard about each other. Morsa was a famous warrior, Mehuve was a very virtuous lady, and through the qualities that they heard, they just settled the marriage talks. But they do not know each other. And after realizing this, Morsa was grief-stricken, but he could not help himself. There is no other option to bring back the lady alive. So sometimes, what we have learned from this story is, in our search for glory, we might even tend to make mistakes. We should not I'm not saying that you should not search for glory. Of course, that is what we all want. But if you don't limit yourself, the thing that you keep doing to others comes back to us. And this story is included in our syllabus to remind us that whatever you do to others comes back to you. It's a folk tale that has been passed, but that is not just randomly put into the syllabus. It is to remind ourselves that whatever we keep doing to others, that always comes back to us. So as students, we should also think, wherever we are, do whatever you want others to do it back to you. This is the lesson that this chapter is teaching all of us. Sometimes we just read the story, we learn the story, and we end it there. But there is always an implication that we can apply in our lives. And the implication here is, whatever you want others to do it back to you, do it. Or else, you would find yourself in a very difficult situation. This is the lesson that has taught us here. And in the search for glory, sometimes in our search for glory, we might tend to do the things that are not very right. And Morsa had faced the same situation. He had already achieved enough glory, but while in the process of still wanting to become more popular, he had committed a very big crime. That means to himself. He is the one who had to face all the consequences because he really wanted to prove himself to be a worthy suitor. We can also consider this as a pride in some way. Sometimes our pride can be our downfall. The thing that you are very proud of can also become the weakness in your life. So we should be very careful while deciding for an adventure, or maybe while you want to achieve something, consider and think well whether it's a good thing that you are pursuing. Or you can also take the advice of your elders, your teachers, or your friends sometimes can help you. These are the things that we have to keep in mind. And with this, we are going to conclude our class here. But I'm expecting you to stay tuned following your routine that has been published, because this is going to help you a lot. Even though it's not a normal class that you usually do, I'm sure you will find this more comfortable than the usual classes that you attend. Thank you. Stay tuned for more.